The best commentaries from the last video.
I remember the day I married Emily like it was yesterday. It was a warm, sunny afternoon, and everything was perfect. The kind of perfect where the weather seems to match the mood, where nothing could go wrong, and you truly feel like you're on top of the world. Emily and I had been together for 5 years. We met in college, me, the shy, introverted engineering student, and her, the outgoing, free-spirited art major. We couldn't have been more different, but that was what made it work. Our differences complemented each other in ways I hadn't even known I needed. She was my rock. The one I could always turn to when life got overwhelming. We laughed at the same dumb jokes, shared endless hours over dinner making plans for our future. It felt like nothing could break us. By the time we were in our mid-20s, we both knew we wanted to get married. I proposed to her on a weekend getaway to the mountains. I'll never forget the look in her eyes when I asked her to spend the rest of her life with me. The excitement, the love, I thought we were untouchable. Our wedding day was a fairy tale. The venue was beautiful, the guests were all smiles, and the air was filled with joy. I remember looking around the room during the reception, seeing Emily glowing as we danced our first dance as husband and wife. I thought about how lucky I was to have found her, how perfect everything felt. But it didn't take long before I realized that perfection is often just an illusion. After the honeymoon phase, the small cracks began to appear. At first, they were barely noticeable. Emily's long hours at work started to stretch into weekends. She'd often come home later than usual, barely able to muster the energy for the kind of conversations we once had. When I asked about it, she always had an excuse ready. "I'm just busy with work." Or, "I need to catch up with some friends." I didn't want to question her, so I let it slide. But a part of me was uneasy. It wasn't just the long hours. It was the way she seemed distant, almost distracted when we were together. I told myself that every couple goes through rough patches, and this was just a phase. She was climbing the corporate ladder, after all, and I knew that her career was important to her. I wanted to be supportive, even if it meant spending less time together. But then there was Noah. Noah was my twin brother, though we couldn't have been more different. Where I was calm, reserved, and methodical, Noah was charismatic, outgoing, and the life of any party. We had always been close growing up, sharing everything, from our toys to our dreams. But after college, he had moved to a different city to pursue his career, and we didn't see each other as much. When Noah announced he was moving back to town, I couldn't have been happier. Emily was excited too, although, in hindsight, I should have noticed how often she seemed to make excuses to spend time with him. At first, it was simple, a family dinner here, a casual chat there. But I couldn't ignore the way Emily started to act around Noah. It was subtle at first, small things like laughing a little too loudly at his jokes or lingering a bit longer when they had private conversations. I brushed it off at first, telling myself that they were family, and nothing was amiss. But then there were moments when I caught them exchanging glances that I couldn't quite explain. I told myself I was just being paranoid. After all, Noah was my twin brother. He was family. What could possibly be wrong with them spending time together? But the feeling gnawed at me. It wasn't until one night that things began to shift. I came home early from work, something I rarely did, and found Emily and Noah in the kitchen, talking and laughing. Noah was holding a glass of wine, and Emily was standing too close to him, her hand resting on his arm. The sight made me freeze in the doorway. I wasn't sure what it was, whether it was the way they seemed so comfortable with each other or the way they both turned to look at me like nothing was wrong, but something inside me snapped. I tried to shake it off. I didn't want to overreact. But later that evening, after dinner, I found an odd text on Emily's phone. It was from Noah. The message simply said, "Can't stop thinking about you. I miss you." I felt my blood run cold. My hands shook as I unlocked her phone and read through the rest of the conversation. It wasn't just innocent chatter. It was personal, intimate, and the more I read, the more I realized this was something that had been going on for a while. "I miss you too. Can't wait to see you tonight," was Emily's response. My heart sank. I stood there, frozen, holding her phone in my hands, trying to process what I had just read. The woman I loved, the woman I had married, was having an affair with my own brother. I felt sick to my stomach. I wanted to confront her, confront Noah, but I didn't know how to begin. My mind raced, and all I could think about was how everything I had built, the life we'd planned together, was crumbling before my eyes. I didn't confront her that night. I couldn't. Instead, I sat there, numb, as she climbed into bed beside me, unaware of the storm I had just discovered. I couldn't sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, all I could see was the image of Noah and Emily, together, in ways I never thought possible. I had to know the truth. I couldn't live with this uncertainty. The next morning, I couldn't ignore the gnawing feeling in the pit of my stomach. I had to confront Emily, but I wasn't sure how to do it. What was I supposed to say? How could I even begin to make sense of the chaos that had suddenly invaded my life? I went to work, but I couldn't focus. Every time I tried to concentrate, the image of that text message would flash in my mind. The words, "Can't stop thinking about you," repeated themselves like a broken record. It was maddening. How long had this been going on? Had I really been blind to what was happening under my roof? By the time I got home, I had made up my mind. I couldn't keep pretending like everything was fine. I needed answers. No more running from the truth. When Emily walked through the door, she seemed different. Her smile wasn't quite as bright as usual, and her energy seemed off. She tried to kiss me as she always did when she got home, but I pulled back, my heart racing. She noticed immediately. "What's wrong?" she asked, her tone laced with confusion. But I knew better than to let her brush it off. "I need to talk to you," I said, my voice tight. "Now." Her face changed instantly. She tensed up, her eyes darting nervously. "Alex, what's going on? What's this about?" I couldn't contain it any longer. I took a deep breath and said the words I never thought I'd say. "I know about you and Noah." She went pale, her lips trembling. "What? What are you talking about?" She took a step back, but I didn't let her avoid me. "The texts, Emily. The ones between you and him," I said, my voice cold. "I read them. I saw everything." Her face contorted with panic, and I could see the guilt creeping into her eyes. "Alex, please let me explain. It's not what you think." I let out a bitter laugh, the sting of betrayal fresh in my chest. "Not what I think? How much more obvious does it need to be, Emily? You and Noah, you've been having an affair." She shook her head vehemently, tears welling up in her eyes. "I swear, it's not like that. He's been going through a tough time, and I've been there for him. I never meant for things to go this far." I could feel my anger rising. "A tough time? You're telling me you've been comforting my brother by sleeping with him? This is more than just comforting him, Emily. You've been betraying me. And worse, you've been lying to my face. To our faces." Her words faltered as she took a step forward, her voice breaking. "I made a mistake, Alex. I never meant for this to happen. I thought I was just helping him, but somewhere along the way, I lost myself. And then it was too late to stop." My head was spinning. How long had this been going on? The realization hit me like a punch to the gut. How could she? My own wife, my Emily, had given herself to my brother, the one person who was supposed to stand by me through everything. I felt like the world was crumbling around me. I couldn't look at her anymore. I needed air, I needed space to process everything. Without another word, I turned and left the room, storming out into the backyard, gasping for breath. I stood there in the cold night air, my hands shaking. I wanted to scream, to shout, to make her understand the depth of what she had done. But instead I just stood there, staring at the ground, trying to make sense of the mess that my life had become. The world seemed to spin around me, everything I thought I knew crumbling away. I stayed outside for hours, my mind racing through every memory, every conversation, every moment I thought we had shared. How long had Emily been lying to me? How long had Noah been feeding me his lies, hiding behind the facade of family loyalty? And then, as the hours dragged on, it hit me. Noah. My twin. The person who had known me better than anyone, who had shared every secret, every dream with me. He had betrayed me just as much as Emily had. It wasn't just her fault, it was him, too. My own brother. My own flesh and blood. When I finally went back inside, Emily was waiting in the living room, her face streaked with tears. She didn't try to approach me this time. She just sat there, her hands clasped tightly in her lap, her eyes pleading for something, anything, that would give her a chance to explain. But I wasn't sure I wanted to listen anymore. What was there to explain? Alex, she said softly, her voice trembling. I know I've ruined everything. But please, please don't leave. I'll do anything to make this right. I shook my head, unable to look at her. How do you fix this, Emily? How do you fix something that's been broken for so long, something that's been done in the dark without me ever knowing? I'll go to therapy, she pleaded. We can work through this, Alex. We can. But I cut her off, the bitterness welling up inside me. You really think I can just forget what you've done? Forget that you've been sleeping with my brother? You think therapy is going to fix that? She recoiled, her face crumpling. No, I don't think therapy will fix it. I don't know if anything can. But I love you, Alex. I made a huge mistake, and I'll spend the rest of my life making it up to you if you let me. But I didn't know if I could. I didn't know if I could ever look at her the same way again. I didn't have the answers. I didn't know what came next. But I couldn't stay in this house, not after everything that had happened. I had to get away. I had to think. And that was when I made the decision that would change everything. I didn't sleep that night. How could I? Every time I closed my eyes I saw them, Emily and Noah. The way she touched my brother, the way she spoke to him when she thought I wasn't looking. I tried to remember the last time she had looked at me like that, but my mind was a blur of doubt and self-loathing. Had I been blind this whole time? Had I been nothing more than a placeholder in my own marriage? At some point, I must have dozed off because I woke up to the sound of my phone buzzing. I grabbed it without thinking, my heart pounding as I saw Noah's name on the screen. My fingers clenched around the phone so tightly that for a moment, I thought I might crack the glass. The audacity. He was calling me. After everything. After stealing my wife. I let it ring. Then it rang again. And again. Finally I answered, my voice ice cold. What? Noah hesitated on the other end. Alex, please. We need to talk. I let out a bitter laugh. Talk? About what, Noah? About how you've been sleeping with my wife behind my back? About how you're the biggest piece of shit I've ever known. I know I messed up, he said quickly. I know I don't deserve to ask you for anything, but please. Just meet me. I almost hung up. Almost. But then something inside me stopped. I did want to meet him. I wanted to look him in the eyes, to hear whatever pathetic excuse he had to offer. I wanted to know why. So I agreed. We met at a small cafe on the edge of town, the kind of place we used to go to as kids when we wanted to escape our parents' fights. I wondered if Noah chose this place on purpose, as if some shared nostalgia would make me forgive him faster. It wouldn't. When I walked in, he was already there, sitting in a corner booth with 2 untouched cups of coffee on the table. He looked up as I approached, and for the first time in my life, I saw fear in my brother's eyes. Good. He should be afraid. I slid into the seat across from him, my arms crossed over my chest. Start talking. Noah exhaled slowly, running a hand through his hair. I don't even know where to begin, man. How about the part where you decided to ruin my life? I suggested. He flinched. It wasn't supposed to be like this. I swear. I scoffed. Oh, so it was an accidental affair? You tripped and fell into my wife's bed? He winced. No. It started differently. He looked down at his hands, as if trying to summon the courage to say the words. At first, It was just harmless. We talked a lot when I moved back. She was lonely, man. You're always working, always so wrapped up in your own world. She needed someone to talk to. Something inside me snapped. Oh, so now it's my fault? I leaned forward, my voice sharp as a blade. You slept with my wife because I work too much? No. Noah's eyes darted up to meet mine. I'm not blaming you. I'm just... I don't know, man. It just happened. I didn't mean for it to go this far. I clenched my fist so hard my nails dug into my palms. So, when did it start? How long have you been sneaking around behind my back? Noah hesitated, then dropped his gaze. 5 months. My stomach twisted. 5 months. 5 months of lies. 5 months of her coming home to me, kissing me goodnight, while carrying the weight of his hands on her body. I swallowed the bow rising in my throat. And what, Noah? You thought you could just keep it going forever? You thought I'd never find out? No, he whispered. I wanted to stop. We both did. But, he trailed off. But you didn't. I finished for him. Noah covered his face with his hands. I hate myself for this, Alex. I swear. I never wanted to hurt you. I let out a harsh laugh. Well, congratulations. You did. Silence stretched between us. Finally, I spoke again. Did you love her? Noah's head snapped up, his eyes wide. What? Did you love her? I repeated. Or was this just sex to you? He opened his mouth, then closed it. He looked away. And that was all the answer I needed. My own twin brother had fallen in love with my wife. I stood up so fast the chair scraped against the floor. You don't get to ask for my forgiveness, Noah. You don't get to sit here and act like this was just some mistake. Noah's face twisted in pain. Alex, please. But I was already walking away. I didn't care what else he had to say. I was done. The drive home felt like a blur. My knuckles were white against the steering wheel, my mind spiraling between rage and devastation. My own brother. My wife. 5 months of deception, 5 months of them meeting behind my back, 5 months of me playing the fool while they laughed at me. I gripped the wheel tighter. This wasn't over. When I pulled into the driveway, the sight of our house, my house, made my stomach turn. The home Emily and I had built together now felt like a crime scene. I sat there for a few minutes, my heart pounding, trying to steady my breathing. If I walked in now, I wasn't sure what I would do. When I finally stepped inside, Emily was in the kitchen, acting like nothing had changed. She was chopping vegetables for dinner, humming softly to herself. The sight made my blood boil. She had the audacity to act normal after what she'd done. She glanced up and smiled, but when she saw the look on my face, the color drained from hers. Alex, she said cautiously. Where have you been? I dropped my keys onto the counter with a loud clank. Talking to Noah. Her hand stilled. The knife hovered over the cutting board. Oh, was all she managed to say. I let out a dry laugh. That's it. Oh? She set the knife down slowly and wiped her hands on a towel, avoiding my gaze. I don't know what you want me to say. You could start with the truth. I snapped. Her eyes finally met mine, filled with guilt and something else, fear. Good. She should be afraid. I already told you, she whispered. It was a mistake. I slammed my fist on the counter, making her jump. Stop calling it that, I roared. A mistake is something that happens once. You don't accidentally cheat on your husband for 5 months, Emily. Tears welled in her eyes, but I didn't care. Not anymore. I didn't mean for it to happen. She tried again, her voice shaking. I swear, Alex. It started as just talking. And then... I don't know. Things got out of control. I scoffed. Out of control? So what? Your clothes just fell off every time he was around. Her face twisted in shame. I was lonely, she admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. My stomach clenched. Lonely? She nodded, wiping at her tears. You were always busy. Always working. And when Noah came back, he was there for me in a way you weren't. I let out a bitter laugh. So because I was working my ass off to provide for us, that gave you an excuse to screw my brother? It wasn't about that, she cried. It wasn't just sex, Alex. I had feelings for him. And there it was. The final knife to my heart. I stared at her, my chest heaving, my mind reeling. I had expected lies, excuses, anything, but not this. Not her standing there, looking me in the eye, and admitting that she loved him. You don't even sound sorry, I muttered. Her lip trembled. I am sorry. I never wanted to hurt you. I clenched my jaw. But you did, Emily. And not just once. Every single time you snuck around, every time you lied to me, every time you touched him, you were hurting me. A tear rolled down her cheek. I don't want to lose you. I stared at her for a long moment, my heart pounding in my chest. Part of me wanted to scream, to throw things, to make her feel even a fraction of the pain she had inflicted on me. But I wouldn't. I wouldn't give her the satisfaction of seeing me break. Instead, I stepped back, shaking my head. You already lost me, Emily. Her face crumpled. Alex, please. I held up a hand, silencing her. I want you out of this house. Pack your things and leave. She sobbed. Where am I supposed to go? I laughed bitterly. Maybe Noah can help you with that. She opened her mouth to protest, but I turned on my heel and walked away. I couldn't stand to look at her anymore. I heard her break down in tears as I walked up the stairs, but I didn't stop. For the first time in my life, I put myself first. Emily was gone by morning. I didn't ask where she went, and I didn't care. I didn't watch as she packed her things, didn't offer to help, didn't acknowledge her broken sobs as she begged me to reconsider. She had made her choice the moment she decided to crawl into bed with my brother. Now, she had to live with the consequences. The house was silent without her. Too silent. Every room felt like a graveyard of broken memories. The scent of her perfume still clung to the pillows. Her coffee mug sat abandoned on the kitchen counter. Our wedding photo still hung on the wall, mocking me. I grabbed it, staring at the two strangers smiling back at me. Lies. All of it was lies. With a surge of rage, I threw the frame across the room, watching as the glass shattered into a million pieces on the hardwood floor. I wasn't done. Noah and Emily thought they could betray me and move on with their lives. Thought I'd be the broken one, left behind while they played happy couple? No. I wasn't going to be the one who lost everything. I was going to make sure they did. I took a leave of absence from work. I told my boss I needed time to deal with personal matters. He understood. He'd known Emily, had met her at company parties, had once called us the perfect couple. The irony wasn't lost on me. With my schedule cleared, I had only one focus. I started with Noah. He had always been reckless, but I knew his weaknesses better than anyone. He was impulsive, irresponsible with money, and completely dependent on his job. Without it, he was nothing. So I made sure he lost it. It didn't take much digging to find dirt on him. A few calls to old friends in the industry, some casual inquiries about his recent performance. Turns out, Noah had a habit of being careless with company funds, expensing things he shouldn't have, taking business trips that served more as personal vacations. I compiled everything, neatly packaged and backed up with evidence. Then I sent it to his boss. It took less than a week for him to get fired. The best part? He had no idea I was behind it. I knew the second he found out, though. He called me, his voice frantic. Alex, man, I lost my job. They said there was an investigation into my expenses, that they had proof. I let him talk, let him ramble, let the panic sink in. Then I simply said, "That's tough, Noah." And I hung up. Next was Emily. She had nowhere to go, no stable income of her own. She had been comfortable in my house, living off my money. I made sure that ended quickly. First, I froze our joint accounts. She had no access to my finances. Then I filed for divorce. But I didn't stop there. I made sure she left with nothing. I had kept records, texts, phone logs, even surveillance footage from our home security system showing her sneaking Noah in when she thought I was at work. I gave it all to my lawyer. He assured me that not only would I get everything, but I could sue her for emotional distress and infidelity damages. I did. She tried to fight it at first. Tried to plead with me, saying we could work things out. But when she realized I wasn't budging, when she realized that she would be left with nothing, no house, no money, no car, she broke down completely. "Alex, please," she sobbed during our final meeting with the lawyers. "Don't do this to me." I leaned forward, looking her dead in the eyes. "You did this to yourself." She moved in with a friend, or maybe with Noah, I didn't know, and I didn't care. But I wasn't done yet. The last step? Making sure they knew they could never have what they stole from me. I made sure everyone knew what they had done. Our family, our friends, even people at their jobs. The affair wasn't a secret anymore. And with Noah unemployed and Emily left with nothing, they had no choice but to rely on each other. It was pathetic, really. A few months later, I heard that their relationship had fallen apart. Turns out, betrayal doesn't exactly make a solid foundation for love. Emily left town. Noah spiraled, moving from job to job, unable to get his life back on track. And me? I thrived. I bought a new place, started fresh. Found someone who actually respected me, who didn't lie to my face while crawling into someone else's bed. I moved on. And I never looked back. Months passed, and with every day that went by, I felt lighter. The weight of betrayal, of heartbreak, of anger, it all started to fade. It didn't happen overnight, but I slowly started rebuilding my life. At first, it was the little things. Rearranging the furniture so the house didn't feel like ours anymore. Tossing out the clothes Emily left behind. Changing my daily routines so nothing reminded me of her. It was like erasing her presence one piece at a time. I focused on myself. I got back into shape, spent more time with friends I had neglected because of my marriage, picked up old hobbies I had long forgotten. People told me I seemed different, stronger, more confident. I felt it too. The part of me that had been broken beyond recognition was starting to heal. But while I was moving on, they were sinking. Noah had tried reaching out a few times after he lost his job, each call more desperate than the last. At first, he acted like he wanted to make amends, but I knew better. He wasn't sorry. He was drowning, and he wanted me to pull him out. He couldn't handle the consequences of his actions. The last time he called, I finally answered. "Alex, please, man." His voice cracked through the speaker. "I know I screwed up, but I need help. Just a loan, something to get me back on my feet. I swear I'll pay you back." I almost laughed. The nerve of this man. The same person who had stabbed me in the back, who had ruined my marriage, was now coming to me for help? "You need money, Noah?" I said, my voice calm. "Why don't you ask Emily?" There was silence on the other end. Then, a bitter chuckle. "She's gone." Of course she was. "What happened?" I asked, pretending to care. He sighed heavily. "She left a couple of weeks ago. Said she couldn't do this anymore. Said I wasn't the same." "So, let me get this straight," I said, leaning back in my chair. "She left me for you, then left you when things got tough?" "Yeah," he muttered. "Maybe now you understand what betrayal feels like," I said before hanging up. That was the last time I ever heard from him. Emily, on the other hand, never reached out again. After losing the divorce settlement, she moved out of town. From what I heard, she bounced from place to place, struggling to find a stable job. The woman who once had everything, our home, our future, our love, now had nothing. I thought maybe one day she'd try to come back, try to apologize or ask for another chance. But she didn't. And I was glad. I had won. Not in a petty, revenge-seeking way. but in the way that truly mattered. I was free from both of them. Free from the lies, the manipulation, the pain. While they had destroyed each other, I had rebuilt myself into someone stronger, someone better. One day, while cleaning out an old drawer, I found our wedding rings. I stared at them for a moment, remembering the promises we had made, the future we thought we would have. Then, without a second thought, I tossed them in the trash. Because the past didn't define me anymore. I had a new life to live. And I wasn't wasting another second on people who never deserved me in the first place. The morning I truly felt free was unexpected. It wasn't some grand revelation, no dramatic moment of closure. I simply woke up, stretched, made my coffee, and realized Emily and Noah didn't cross my mind anymore. They weren't ghosts haunting my every thought. Their absence felt like fresh air, like the weight had finally lifted from my chest. For the first time in a long time, I smiled just because I could. I had rebuilt everything from the ground up. My house was no longer a painful reminder of betrayal. I had sold the old place and moved into a modern apartment downtown. It wasn't as big, but it was mine. No memories of them in every corner. No reminders of what had been taken from me. Just a clean slate, exactly what I needed. My career had never been better. After taking some time off to handle the divorce, I threw myself back into work with renewed focus. Promotions, opportunities, connections, it all came faster than I expected. Maybe because I had nothing else to distract me. Maybe because I refused to be the broken man they thought I'd become. And then there was her. I wasn't looking for anything serious. Dating was the last thing on my mind, but life had a way of surprising me. It started with casual conversations at the gym, then long talks over coffee, then dinners that stretched late into the night. Her name was Claire, and she was nothing like Emily. Where Emily was calculated, Claire was effortless. Where Emily had built walls of deception, Claire was an open book. For the first time in years, I laughed without bitterness. I felt something real again. One evening, as we sat on my balcony watching the city lights flicker below, Claire turned to me, curiosity in her gaze. "You never talk about your past relationships," she said. I sipped my drink, considering my words. "Because they don't matter anymore." She raised an eyebrow, waiting for more. I sighed, running a hand through my hair. I was married. It ended badly. How badly? Let's just say, I learned how betrayal feels firsthand. Claire didn't pry. She didn't push for details or demand some dramatic retelling of my pain. She simply took my hand and squeezed it. "Well, whoever hurt you? They were idiots." I chuckled. Yeah. They were. We sat in silence for a moment before she smirked. "So, should I be worried about a twin brother showing up?" I laughed, genuinely laughed, for the first time in what felt like forever. "No. You're safe." And for the first time in a long time, I actually believed it. Emily and Noah had taken so much from me, but they hadn't destroyed me. They hadn't left me shattered beyond repair. I had survived. I had won. And most importantly, I had moved on. Months passed, and life settled into something I hadn't felt in years: peace. No more waking up with a pit in my stomach. No more anger festering beneath the surface. No more wondering why they did what they did. I had my own life now, and for the first time in a long time, I was happy. Claire and I grew closer in ways I never expected. She wasn't just someone to fill the emptiness Emily left behind. She was someone completely different, someone who made me feel like me again. We didn't rush things. No pressure, no expectations. Just two people enjoying each other's company. But life had a way of testing you just when you thought you were safe. It started with a missed call. I was at work when I saw the notification flash on my phone. An unknown number. I almost ignored it, but something told me to check. When I played the voicemail, my blood ran cold. "Alex, it's me. Emily." Her voice was shaky, barely above a whisper. "I know I'm the last person you want to hear from. I don't blame you. I don't even know why I'm calling. I just..." I needed to hear your voice. I needed to say I'm sorry. I stared at my phone, my pulse pounding. She continued, her words thick with regret. I don't expect you to forgive me. I don't even deserve a response. But if you ever want to talk, just once, just to. She exhaled shakily. I don't know. I just needed to say this. I'm sorry, Alex. The message ended. I sat there, gripping my phone, trying to process what I had just heard. Emily. After all this time. I didn't know what to feel. The anger wasn't there anymore. Neither was the pain. All I felt was nothing. I didn't respond. I didn't call back. I deleted the message. Emily was my past. And I had no reason to look back. That night, Claire and I went out for dinner. We laughed, we talked, we lived in the moment. And as I sat across from her, watching her eyes light up as she told me a story about her childhood, I realized something. Emily's apology didn't matter. I had already won. Weeks passed after Emily's voicemail, and I thought that was the end of it. She had reached out, thrown her apology into the void, and I had let it vanish without a second thought. I had no reason to dwell on it. But then Noah called. I was at home, enjoying a quiet evening with Claire, when my phone buzzed. His name flashed across the screen, and for a moment, I considered letting it go to voicemail. But something in me told me to answer. Maybe curiosity. Maybe the lingering part of me that once saw him as my brother. I stepped out onto the balcony, exhaling sharply before pressing accept. What do you want, Noah? Silence. Then a deep sigh. Alex. I need your help. I let out a humorless laugh. You've got to be kidding me. I'm serious, he said quickly. I screwed up, man. Everything's gone to shit. Not my problem. Please, he pleaded. Just hear me out. I hesitated. Not because I cared, but because I wanted to hear just how far he had fallen. Fine, I said, leaning against the railing. You've got 2 minutes. I have nothing left, he admitted, his voice shaking. After I lost my job, things just kept getting worse. I couldn't find stable work. Bills piled up. And then Emily. He trailed off. She left you. I finished for him. Yeah, I know. It's not just that, he muttered. She took what little I had left and ran. She drained my account, left me with debt I can't crawl out of. I should have felt satisfaction, knowing the two people who betrayed me had turned on each other. But all I felt was indifference. You deserve it, I said simply. Alex, please. I don't know what to do. I'm drowning. I stared out at the city skyline, feeling nothing but cold detachment. You should have thought about that before you decided to screw over the one person who always had your back. I know, he said desperately. I know I messed up. But I'm still your brother. No, I said firmly. You stopped being my brother the second you betrayed me. Silence. Then, barely above a whisper, he said, So that's it. That's it, I confirmed. You made your bed, Noah. Now lie in it. I hung up. The moment I walked back inside, Claire looked up at me, concern in her eyes. Everything okay? I smiled, pressing a kiss to her forehead. Yeah, I said, meaning it. Everything's perfect. Months passed, and life continued moving forward, smooth and uninterrupted. The more time that went by, the less I thought about them, Noah, Emily, the betrayal, the destruction they had caused. Their names became ghosts, fading into the background of my new life. I had everything I needed, everything they thought they had taken from me. And in the end, I had come out of this as the one who truly won. But closure has a way of finding you when you least expect it. It was a chilly evening when it happened. Claire and I had just finished dinner at a small restaurant near our apartment. We were walking back to the car when I spotted a figure slumped against the side of a convenience store across the street. At first, I didn't think anything of it, just another down-on-their-luck guy, worn-out clothes, cigarette in hand, staring blankly into the distance. Then he looked up. Noah. Or at least, what was left of him. His face was gaunt, his once confident posture reduced to a tired slouch. His clothes were wrinkled, his hair unkempt. He looked like a shell of the man I once knew. Our eyes met. His widened with recognition, and for a moment neither of us moved. "Alex?" he called out, his voice hoarse. Claire glanced at me. "Do you know him?" I exhaled, nodding slowly. "I used to." I could have kept walking. I should have. But something made me stop. Maybe it was the final thread of brotherhood still buried somewhere deep inside me. Maybe I just wanted to see how much he had fallen. Claire squeezed my hand. "I'll wait in the car," she said softly. I crossed the street, stopping a few feet away from him. "Didn't expect to see you here, Noah." He let out a dry, humorless chuckle. "Didn't expect to be here either." He looked down at himself, shaking his head. "Guess you were right. I made my bed, and now I'm lying in it." I didn't respond. I just watched him, waiting for whatever excuse he was about to throw my way. "I lost everything," he admitted after a moment. "The job, the money, Emily. Turns out karma's real." He forced a bitter smile. "I kept waiting for things to turn around, but they never did. That's what happens when you destroy the only person who ever had your back," I said simply. He nodded slowly. "I know. And I deserve this." He exhaled shakily. "I just wanted to say, I'm sorry, Alex. Not for me. Not because I want anything from you. Just because I finally understand what I did." I stared at him, searching for any trace of the brother I once knew. But all I saw was a broken man drowning in the consequences of his own actions. And for the first time, I didn't feel anger. I didn't feel the need for revenge. I didn't feel anything. I had moved on. "Take care of yourself, Noah," I said, turning to leave. "Alex," he called after me, his voice cracking. I paused but didn't turn around. "Do you think there's ever a chance we could fix this?" I closed my eyes for a brief second, then shook my head. "No. Some things can't be fixed." I walked away without looking back. As I slid into the driver's seat, Claire reached over and took my hand. "Are you okay?" I squeezed her fingers gently. "Yeah," I said, and for the first time in a long time, I truly meant it. Noah and Emily were nothing more than a lesson now, a painful chapter in a book I had already finished. And now? Now, I was finally free.